Boy, oh boy, folks, I gotta tell you, the school resource officer crisis in the state of Minnesota is only getting more complicated, more legally hazardous for law enforcement agencies, and presenting less safety for students, faculty, and staff in Minnesota's public schools. Here's the latest development. You're not gonna believe it. Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty has issued new guidance regarding school resource officers and their use of reasonable force. This guidance paints a very different picture from that presented earlier by Attorney General Keith Ellison. If you recall, Ellison had, after much deliberation, concluded that peace officers, including SROs, are permitted to use reasonable use of force while executing lawful duties, such as making an arrest or fulfilling court orders. Contrasting this, County Attorney Moriarty believes that the use of force by school resource officers should be confined to instances specified in the Education Code. In other words, she thinks force should only be used when there's an imminent threat of bodily harm or death. Now, this newly expressed opinion by Mary Moriarty is precisely what organizations like the Minnesota Police Chiefs Association and the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association previously warned about. If officers cannot use reasonable force to execute their lawful duties, then school resource officers are operating under a completely different standard than an officer called in from off the street. In other words, as many of us have been saying for weeks now, reasonable use of force has effectively been banned in Minnesota's public schools, leaving students, faculty, and staff vulnerable and SROs operating under a crippling liability. Moriarty's opinion is her own. It isn't legally binding, but it is the lens through which she will evaluate her own potential actions and through which other county attorneys may do the same. If an SRO's actions surpass Moriarty's interpretation, it could lead to her challenging the Attorney General's stance in a courtroom, setting the stage for a significant legal showdown, which is precisely what law enforcement agencies who have pulled their SROs hoped to avoid. This development has certainly made waves. Just as Minnesota Democrats were beginning to experience some relief of pressure from this issue, Moriarty's announcement has dragged them right back into the hot seat and validated everything their critics have been saying. If this is an issue you care about, if you care about the safety of your students in Minnesota's public schools, it is time once again, even if you've already done it, to contact the governor's office and put pressure on Tim Walz to call a special session and once and for all fix this problem. Working with the minority, working with Republicans in the House and the Senate, Governor Walz could solve this issue probably in about 24 hours if he just made the decision to do so. The issue would then go away. You wouldn't have Republicans like me making hay about it anymore because it would be solved, fixed, done, over with. But unfortunately, that would require the type of bipartisanship that this governing trifecta just doesn't seem to be interested in. Thanks for watching. Show your support with a follow, subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. HudsonForMN.com.